I talk about gender and diversity within the European Union. Now, what is the European Union? We are 28 very diverse member states, which are about 2/3 of Europe, they're geographical Europe. And we are very diverse in the sense that we have bigger countries like Germany, for example, but compared to India, it's still very small. They have about 85 million people. And we have tiny countries like Malta. They have 500,000 population only. And of course, we are also very diverse when it comes to languages, when it comes to our cultures, when it comes to our historical experiences. So, what do we do within the European Union? We have the European Commission, which is seated in Brussels, and they try to legislate for us. So all the European Union member states have passed on parts of their sovereignty to the European Commission. And what we try now when it comes to diversity and gender, we try within the European Union region to have at least similar minimum standards. So what I'm talking about here now is what we try to do as a minimum for women equality and for equality in general in Europe. Equality between women and men is one of the fundamental values of the European Union and is enshrined in the treaties of the European Union. Equality, diversity, and non-discrimination are fundamental ingredients of the European idea. And originally we thought that it would be fine when we talk about formal equality within the European Union, which would mean things that are alike should be treated alike. And later on we figured out this was not enough, because when you have equal application of rules to different groups or individuals, that can produce unequal results. Over the years, we have decided that the principle of gender equality has to be reinforced by legislation, because it doesn't always work out on a voluntary basis. Now, our member states are obliged to ensure equal opportunities and equal treatment for men and women to combat any form of discrimination on the grounds of gender. The European laws have evolved in their nature and scope, with their focus shifting from the protection of individual rights in the 1970s to the introduction of specific or positive actions addressing the disadvantages experienced by women in the 1980s, to a policy directed towards gender mainstreaming, recognizing that existing structures are non-gender neutral but favor one sex or another in a variety of subtle or not too subtle ways in the 1990s. And in the last 15 years, we have a shift towards substantive equality, and we talk about diversity now. Diversity defined as a range of human differences consisting of numerous visible and non-visible grounds such as gender, race, ethnicity, religion, disability, sexual orientation, political opinions, citizenship, and many others. So the increased recognition of diversity as a European value has come about, and now we have the motto "United in Diversity," which enshrines the idea that Europeans are united in building together peace and democracy, and that the many different cultures, traditions, and languages existing in the European Union are a plus value for our continent. The EU, for all of that, the EU institutions have passed anti-discrimination directives in the 2000s, and the so-called Equality Directive, which provide everyone in the European Union, either citizens or also third country nationals, with a common minimum level of legal protection against discrimination. Now, how do we measure gender inclusion in the European Union? In the EU, we have our own institute. It's called the European Gender Equality Index of the European Institute of Gender Equality, which measures our legislation and particularly the implementation of this legislation. It is a comprehensive index comparing all the European Union countries, comprising of 6 core domains: work, money, knowledge, time, power, and health, which are key domains of the EU policy framework, as well as 2 satellite domains, namely intersecting inequalities and violence. Within these domains, we have 31 indicators, that being examined in all 28 countries. And in 2017, we have published the fourth of these gender equality indexes, focusing on the development which was made between 2005 and 2015. And this gender equality index considers gaps that are to the detriment of either women or men as being equally problematic, like, for example, the share of men in education, human health, and social work activities within the European member states, in average, is only 8.3%, while the share of women is 30.4%. Over the past decades, progress towards gender equality in the European Union has, from our point of view, rather been slow. With an average gender equality index score of 66.2 out of 100, the EU still has lots of room for improvement when it comes to the equality of men and women. Sweden and Denmark, in the north of the European Union, have consistently had the best indices, now most gender equal societies. Now, what are the key findings in 2018 of the Commission's report on equality between men and women within the European Union? When it comes to the employment of women, there's continued increase, but slowly and steadily, and up to now we have 60.6% of our women are in formal employment, compared to 71.8% for men. Despite this, women are not achieving full economic independence. According to our recent survey, in comparison to men, women still tend to be employed less, are employed in lower paid sectors, work on average 6 hours more per week than men, but have fewer paid hours, take more career breaks, and face fewer and slower promotions. When it comes to the gender gap, women still earn on average 16% less than men per hour, and the gap, of course, varies greatly from one member state to the other. When it comes to women on boards of big listed companies, we also do have a problem from our point of view, because France is the only member state in which there was over 40% of women on boards. Women in politics, here the situation varies greatly. National parliaments in Sweden, Finland, and Spain had at least 40% of women, while in 6 countries women accounted for less than 20%. Similarly, governments had as many women as men in France, in Germany, Slovenia, and Sweden, while women were completely absent from the government of Hungary, for example. Violence against women still remains a problem. According to the Gender Equality Index of the European Union in 2017, when it comes to the measurement of violence against women on a scale of 1 to 100, 1 is very little violence, 100 is very high violence, the EU score is 27.5. The score varies again, lots between different countries, ranging from 22% in Poland to 44% in Bulgaria. So in Bulgaria there is more violence against women on the workplace. That was more or less the status quo of the European Union. Now, what is the EU doing to change all that? And I have, from these many activities we do, have picked out 6 areas which might be of interest to you. What is the EU doing to help women to remain in the labor market? The European Commission adopted a comprehensive package of policy and legal measures to improve the work-life balance for working parents and carers in April 2017. Their proposed directive aims at establishing an EU-wide right to paternity leave and strengthens the existing right to paternity leave, meaning for men and for women, after a child was born. The Commission's proposal further introduces leave for workers caring for seriously ill or dependent relatives who would be able to take off at least 5 days per year compensated with sick pay leave. And finally, the proposal sets right to request more flexible working arrangements for all working parents with children up to 12 years and carers with dependent relatives, not only in terms of time, that means flexible work time or reduced work time, but also in terms of place of work, meaning, for example, teleworking. What is the European Union, what does the EU do to promote the role of women in science and innovation? The European Commission provides, through the Research and Innovation Program, which we call Horizon 2020, funds the research organizations for the implementation of gender equality plans. With a biannual data set, which is called She Figures, the Commission keeps track of the progress women make in research and innovation throughout Europe. The statistics show that women are gaining ground, but progress is still slow. For example, female PhD graduates, we have about 47% of all at the moment. Female heads of research institutions, only 20. Women researchers, about 37, and female professors, only 21 at universities. What is the EU doing for women entrepreneurs? Women represent a large pool of underexploited entrepreneurial potential, as we know, as in Europe, women represent less than 30% of entrepreneurs. Women are disproportionately affected by the difficulties all entrepreneurs face, for example, digitization, but also access to funding. The Commission therefore generally supports small and medium-sized enterprises when they are run by women entrepreneurs, and this again via this program called Horizon 2020. Now, what do we do to include more women in the tech sector? The Women in Digital Age study done by the European Commission and published this year sheds light on factors influencing women participation in the digital sector. Once women are in the digi sector, they tend to leave it at a greater rate than men. This is particularly clear in the age group 30 to 44, which is the key stage in the person's professional development. The age range is also the period when most Europeans have their first child or have small children to look after. And this drop-out phenomenon of women from digital jobs has an economic cost. The annual productivity loss for the European economy due to women leaving their digital jobs is estimated to 16.1 billion euros. Now, what do we do in order to repair this situation? There is a Digital Skills and Job Coalition for 90 different organizations. They try and tackle the digital skills gap. There is a Digital Opportunity Traineeship Program which offers student and recent graduates from all disciplines traineeship in digital jobs in another European Union country. And there's a new strategy on women in the digital sector which will promote actions like highlighting successful role models, as was spoken before, which is so important, in order to break the stereotypes that the digital sector is being a man's world, as the study pointed out that many young girls do not take up an education in ICT-related fields as they had no role model and they see it as a field that is more for men. Encouraging successful women in the digi sector and drawing attention to their achievements is one of the actions through which the Commission aims to tackle stereotyping. Now, what is the EU doing to empower women through trade policy? While trade policy is gender neutral in the EU like elsewhere, it may not always be gender sensitive. For instance, trade in services is often connected to the movement of people with rules on qualifications and licenses. Such rules must not inadvertently discriminate against women. Furthermore, we need better data and better input to be able to consider gender issues when we assess the impact of our trade deals. And in some free trade agreements, for example, the one of the EU with Chile, a chapter of gender is included, strengthening coordination and oversight of women's issue within trade. Now, ladies and gentlemen, that was 50 years of struggle in the European Union in a nutshell when it comes to gender and diversity within our European Union member states. The description I presented you with is necessarily incomplete, but I had to concentrate on a few main developments to give you an overview of gender in the European Union. Thank you.